Hi, my name's Rene. I'm one of the software managers here at Genetec. I'm part of the platform group, and we're responsible for, among other things, a large portion of the Security Center UI, the directory, and more importantly, the Federation. We get a couple of questions now and then from customers concerning Security Center Federation and confusion around it. Specifically, what is it that we federate? What don't we federate? And what are the reasons for our choices behind that? It's not surprising. The Federation is a complicated feature, and it has a long-standing history here at Genetec. I'm going to take 5 minutes of your time. We're going to take a look at it, and we're going to see if we can try and demystify some of the questions surrounding what it is that we federate, what don't we, what are our choices, and why. Okay. So probably the best way to understand Security Center Federation a little bit better is going to be to review some of the design ideas behind it. And so on the advice of one of the trainers we have here in the company, we're going to kick it off with an example. Let's take citywide surveillance systems. We have 3 disparate offices in a particular city. We've got the police, we've got the Department of Transport, and we've got the Port Authority. Each of those 3 offices has their own budget, their own mandate, and their own VMS. It just happens that they're all security center of, let's say, different versions. But the police's mandate is more important than that. Their mandate is the public safety, which means they're going to be interested in receiving video from any point in the city, anywhere, at any given point in time. So what do? Well, that's where Security Center is useful. Because through the Federation, you can take the video associated with all of those individual points and draw them all in to the station's central office. And voila. The police have access to video in case of emergencies at any given point in time, either for monitoring or for resolving issues if there's something important that needs to be handled. So what does that mean in terms of the design principles behind the Federation? Well, when we designed the Federation, the first thing we thought of was security desk. And the idea is, if you're doing monitoring, what we really need to do is federate anything that's associated with security desk. The rest of it we're not too concerned about. The other thing that we included in the design decisions associated with Security Center was a question of performance and scale. Federation is designed to scale. We're talking about over 1 million entities across thousands of individual Federation roles. But in order to do that, we have to limit the list of things that we choose to federate. So that's the other important thing to keep in mind. But what does that boil down to in terms of what we actually federate? Well, there are essentially 3 key things that we choose to federate. The first is entities. And if you want the list of things that we federate, well, it's simple. Just open the security desk. In the security desk, in the monitoring task over on the left-hand side, there's what we call internally the entity tree. The entity tree contains a list of everything that you basically need to work with the security desk. And that essentially boils down to the list of the stuff we'll tend to federate. Along with a couple of notable additions, things like alarms, which are essential for the alarm monitoring task, or maps for Plan Manager. And in addition to that, other federations. And that's a pretty powerful use case, because that way we can daisy chain multiple federations, and our police headquarters can actually draw in even more of the things that they need to be able to do their jobs effectively. The second thing that we federate among the 3 is events. We actually tap into the event flow of the other system and draw those events into Security Center. It's convenient because you have the ability to configure which events are of interest to you and which are not, just by grabbing the config tool and setting the events of interest to you in the configuration associated with the role. It's interesting to note that some of the events that we deal with in Security Desk actually force us to add additional entities into the list of stuff that we synchronize from the other system. For example, in access control, when you drag and drop a door into a tile and you see an access grant or an access denied event, we also include cardholder and credential information in with that event. Which means that in order for us to be able to get that information, it has to come across the Federation. So we federate cardholders and credentials as well. The third thing, and perhaps the most important, is reports. We federate reports, but we don't federate all reports. And that's because while all reports make their way into the directory, not all of them get dispatched out of the directory into other elements of the system. And as a result, not all of them make their way out to the Federation. So for example, the hardware inventory report or the audit and activity trail reports are processed directly inside the directory, which means that they never make their way out to the Federation. If you want a simple rule of thumb for keeping track of which reports are likely to be federated and which ones are not, it's relatively straightforward. Any report involving video, only video, access control, or license plate recognition, only, are typically reports that have to be dispatched from the directory out to the respective roles to collect the information and then bring it back into your client, which means those reports make their way out to the federation and typically they get federated. If it's a report that combines elements of all three, something like the hardware inventory report, then typically those get processed inside the directory and don't make their way out to the federation. But that's something we're working on fixing. That covers the three first elements, but there's one final thing that we should probably discuss, which is to do with entities that we specifically choose not to federate. For performance and scale reasons, for example, we don't federate users. If you think about it, users are one of the most prolific entities in the system. Across 2,500 federations, we're talking about a large number of individual users. So we just don't federate those entities. Fine. So what does that mean? Well, it can have a sometimes subtle impact on elements of the security desk, but it's nothing ever serious. For example, in the alarm monitoring task, if you look at the acknowledged by field, one of the things that you'll notice is that for an acknowledged alarm, if it's federated, you won't see any information there. Well, it's because we don't federate users. Same thing goes for the report task. If you look at the alarm report, down at the bottom, there's a filter that's called acknowledged by. And down below that, you'll have the list of all the users in the system. Well, you won't see any federated users in that list. And that's pretty much it. If you do have additional questions, you can always check the Security Center Admin Guide, or worst case scenario, if you're ever really stuck, you can contact one of us inside the platform group and we'll be happy to answer any question you have.